Hello, I'm Elizabeth Lum and I'm the Director for Global Professional Affairs for Myopia at CooperVision. We've enjoyed a 4-year partnership with the World Council of Optometry, and this year we launched the Myopia Management Navigator, which is an evidence-based tool that supports eye care professionals in really getting to grips with the 3 M's of myopia management: mitigation, measurement and management. This tool is supported by some ambassadors, and I'm here with 3 of those today to talk about their experiences in introducing that navigator to the wider audience. And when the World Council of Optometry and CooperVision approached you to be an ambassador, how did that make you feel and why did you say yes?
Oh, I was absolutely delighted to be approached by the World Council of Optometry and CooperVision. It's that translation of research through to clinical practice that I absolutely love, and so being able to be part of that, be able to share the news about it, to help optometrists, eye care professionals in practice integrate more with myopia management with the support of the navigator has been excellent.
Look, it's a huge honour. Quite frankly, it's a huge responsibility because the area that I'm sort of helping out with is Asia Pacific, which is quite a large area. But I'm passionate, right? So I just know that we've got a lot of friends in industry, whether it's, you know, with CooperVision or WCO or any of the other suppliers, but it's that's probably the thing that's going to help achieve the goals of the ambassadors, you know.
How do you view your role in helping CooperVision and the World Council of Optometry promote the navigator to try and give it access to as many people as possible?
Through teaching and continuous professional development, which I'm engaged in both, that the future optometrists and the present optometrists can learn, and I then had a platform and the two to share with them to help support their journey so that we can all work on this together.
We're here at the International Myopia Conference in Hainan. Can you speak a bit about the key highlights that you think that you can take back to clinical practice? So perhaps we'll start with Nicola.
There's been a lot of work looking at new interventions or opportunities where we can really effectively manage myopia in children. And I think what I'm really excited about is the opportunity to take that new evidence, to move it forward, to translate it through into clinical practice. And one way of doing that, of course, is through the WCO CooperVision Myopia Management Navigator.
The last couple of days have been really focused on things that we can take home to clinical practice. A couple of things that we've learned about has been related to younger children and having the confidence to maybe prescribe to those myopia management options. You know, like we've built a lot of relationships over the last few days with people who are doing things that we want to do in New Zealand to help advance myopia moving forward in our research aspects. I'm hoping that the science that they've given us helps us to use and practice tools like the navigator.
I think for me the key highlight was the emphasis on pre-myopia and thinking about mitigating against myopia onset and its development, and maybe this will slow its progression. But there was a heavy emphasis on looking at pre-myopia in different populations and how it may hit slightly earlier in the Asian population compared to Caucasian populations, but looking at that and what lifestyle factors and what thinking of how we can affect change from a public health point of view.
You've been working with the navigator since its launch. How have you sort of introduced that to your colleagues and peers?
I've introduced it as really a vital resource if you want to be doing myopia management in clinical practice. And the reasons for that is that it's a really dynamic tool and you can use it in a variety of different ways. There may be some clinicians who know a reasonable amount about myopia but really want that up-to-date evidence so they can kind of do that deep dive into the evidence base that's there. And there may be other clinicians who are kind of starting out with myopia management, and for them it's a really useful resource because they can get an overview of what they're meant to be doing. It really helps them guide those conversations, as you said, with parents and children, and then think about what options they've got available and how they might implement them in their clinical practice.
It's a confidence builder, eh? And what I like about it is that, let's say some new science comes out tomorrow that X treatment does this, you can just update it very quickly.
It's a one-stop shop. It's easy to use, it's easy to navigate, and it's very useful even for my students. It's very useful for them because when they're flustered before patients coming in and they want to have a think about how to look at a child's profile of how they conduct a visual task analysis and see what people like to do, how they like to spend their time. And then they can look at the navigator in advance, and then we have to apply that, your bench to bedside. How do you take this data and how do you make it relevant to what people are seeing in practice? And I think, again, that's where the navigator helps, that you can take it at whatever level. I think you're right, it's the confidence that comes along with that.
Tell me a bit about the sort of feedback that you've had from others that have been introduced to it by yourselves.
Positive, very, very positive, and it's been updated recently based on feedback, that iterative process of UI and UX, and you can see where people are happy and how they use the platform.
In many cases, practitioners, including myself, you don't know maybe where to start. Depending on the patient that's in front of you, right? So this gives you a nice, like sometimes I might be talking about measurement first, okay? And then we're talking about, okay, then we can move back to mitigation. But it has the 3 areas. As long as you cover those in your conversation, you're good, and then you haven't missed anything. So that's been the feedback for us, is like, okay, I've done my job. They feel like they've done their duty of care.
Checklist, it's there. You've got that checklist and you feel safe.
The university, I work with both optometrists. They predominantly work in the clinics, and also with researchers, and both have had different approaches to looking at that navigator as well. So the clinicians find it a great resource. I mean, they're at their university, so they've got access to lots of different instruments, but sometimes they're not quite sure what to use or when to use it, and so it just gives them that confidence again in being able to kind of appropriately use the right tools or instrumentation for that child that they've got in front of them. And then for the researchers, you often have a really quite niche area in terms of research, and this gives you that broader base of what the literature is out there as well.
In 2021, the World Council of Optometry launched their standard of care for resolution, and I'm just curious about how you feel their progress has been since that time in terms of supporting their drive towards making myopia management a standard of care.
I think in terms of making myopia management a standard of care, across countries and things, the World Council of Optometry is really, striving to do so. And I think having the navigator there as a resource really will back up their cause as well, because they need to approach regulatory bodies, the professional bodies in those countries. And if they go to them and say, want to make this a standard of care, bodies are really looking to see what support's available for those protections, where's the evidence base? And the navigator really encompasses all of that, and I think that's why it's a really important resource.
These tools are critical to communicate education to the general population. It's now just everyone working together to go, right, you have to do this now.
We're working in practice with parents and children and families, but it is very challenging for families where you have 2 working parents. There's work while children are in school, and then after school they don't have access to outdoors. So I think we need to advocate beyond the practice, but in our communities, to schools that you can introduce into the day that time outdoors. We actually have to move outside there and engage with the community directly, because I don't think we can be where I want us to be in a few years' time unless we do that, and we push the education and public health education. And actually I have introduced the navigator to families, and a lot of them like to read and like to look through, and they can flick into something because they'll remember some of what I said, but they'll see more then.
But that's actually a really good point, because we all know someone who's looked up their symptoms on the internet, right? Why not give them the trusted information, because you're the trusted source? That would actually probably be a really good outcome if you could have that acceptance where, the community takes responsibility for its people. It's not just a group of practitioners.
So the World Council of Optometry and CooperVision's Myopia Management Navigator is a product agnostic, evidence-based resource, and if you've not yet been able to check it out, I'd encourage you to do so. Thank you to the 3 ambassadors that we have with us here today for your passion and your support in driving this tool and making sure that everybody has access to it. So thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot.